I'll just tell you how the what the format is. I was going to ask both candidates to introduce themselves with opening statement of 3 minutes each, and Mike was to go first, and then we would move on to questions from the members, and John would trading off would answer the first question. All questions need to be directed to both candidates, and I'm hoping we can get through each question on an average of 5 minutes for both. And then at 7:55, I will ask each candidate to give a closing statement of about 2 minutes each. And then if there's still more questions and the members decide, we can keep the meeting open if that's okay with Scott and Brian. So what do you all think about having Mike do his opening statement while we wait for John to log on? Is that okay with everyone? Okay, so go for it, Mike. Oh, I forgot to do my timing things. I'll have to use my phone. Okay. 3. Okay, go for it.
Hi, I'm Mike French. Thanks for having me. I've been a member of the Port Angeles City Council for the last 4 years. I was born and raised here in Port Angeles. I graduated from the high school, from Peninsula College, and then I went and got a 4-year degree from Central Washington University, Bachelor of Arts in Music. And for the past 14 or 15 years or so, I've been the owner and operator of the First Street Haven restaurant in downtown Port Angeles. My wife and I have 2 school-aged children that are just waking up and getting ready for school right now. And so for the past, since they've been in our public school system, I've tried to be really involved with the Port Angeles School District. For the past 6 years, I've been the vice president of the Hamilton Elementary PTO, and I'm currently on the Capital Advisory Committee with the school district, which is a really great little committee where we get to help the school district with some of the projects that they're doing related to the capital levy that was passed in 2020. Civic engagement has always been something that I viewed as kind of a duty. When I was younger, my wife and I, before we had kids, we had time, we volunteered and performed a lot musically with the Port Angeles Light Opera Association, and then with also the Port Angeles Symphony Orchestra. And then in the past few years, I've been a board member on the Olympic Peninsula Community Clinic, which was formerly VMO. And this year I'm the board president. Also, the city council then designates me to a bunch of boards and committees. And on those boards and committees and at the city council, I've tried to be kind of a moderate, reasonable voice for the business community. I'm designated to the Port Angeles Chamber of Commerce. I've been on that for 4 years, which has been one of the more fun and exciting commitments that I've been in. I'm also on the Olympic Peninsula Tourism Commission, and I'm the chair of the Port Angeles Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. And so you can kind of see this theme of business, tourism, and with this downtown kind of view. So I'm also through the county, I'm on the County Homelessness Task Force. So as a city council person, I've also had kind of an interest in housing and homelessness policy. I think we've made a lot of progress, but obviously we still have a lot to do, both at the city level and at the county level. I assume I'm probably running close to my time, but I look forward to all your questions. I think a lot of the issues we'll probably get into in the Q&A. So I hope to earn your vote. Thanks for inviting me, and let's hear some questions, unless John showed up.
I'm not seeing him. I'm not quite sure what to do. I wasn't expecting this. I've been checking my email and I've got nothing from him. Oops, I better hit stop on that.
Do you have a cell phone number?
No, I don't. Does anybody have a cell phone number for him?
Rebecca's got a question.
Naturally. So obviously we're, housing, a huge issue. My understanding is that there are about 900 Airbnbs right now in Clallam County, which is 900, fewer houses that families can rent, that kind of thing. Some cities are looking at programs such as either diverting some of the lodging tax into homelessness task force money. So we're not talking about an additional tax, but trying to find money because they're such a disruptor in that market. There's other things that if you're buying a house, you have to reside in it for at least 1 year before it's rentable. And I'm just wondering if you'd be interested or willing to look into any of those things as part of the plan to reduce homelessness.
Sure, great question. So obviously, some of this stuff gets very contentious very quickly as people kind of have this divide between, a real understanding that we have housing issues at all income levels, right? We have availability issues in, working professionals. The hospital has recruitment issues regarding to housing. We have, working families are struggling to find housing, and then down the line, in that affordable housing, and all levels have issues. And then at the same time, people are very strongly, aware of property rights and things like that. So I would say that from the Olympic Peninsula Tourism Commission perspective, we've had some of those discussions about lodging tax being diverted into affordable housing. And the industry players are very, meaning the tourism industry players, hospitality, lodging, are very opposed to that idea. Especially right now, is that we're seeing, their industries are being hit really the hardest by the pandemic. So while I don't necessarily think it's an idea that we should, dismiss out of hand, right now is not the time to be diverting lodging tax money towards housing. Right now, those industries are really going through a significant rebuild because of the pandemic impacts that they've had. And I also think that the state legislature needs to weigh in. Right now, I think that's legal to do in King County, but not the rest of the state on affordable housing through the LTAC. We've had, I think people have had a lot of ideas about this. You bring up a true fact that there are, I think around 900. I even think that stat was whole home Airbnbs. So one thing that I always like to disambiguate is in the city limits, we don't necessarily have a huge profusion of whole home Airbnbs. Many of the Airbnbs that are served inside the city limits are units that would not necessarily be permanent housing if they were banned from being Airbnbs. But at the same time, yes, we have a housing crisis. Yes, we need to be looking at different policy levers that we can pull. So to me, my perspective is I want to do whatever I can as a local official to make sure that everyone has housing options at every level. So for me, that's a supply issue. We need to make sure that there's a good, robust supply and the government is not getting in the way of creating new supply. In the past, I think on the West Coast, especially of the United States, that government has really played a role in limiting supply of housing availability, both in making it harder to develop dense urban housing, which that's not necessarily going to be appropriate in all segments of Port Angeles, on all geographic areas in Port Angeles. But I do think there are some where if you walk around neighborhoods in Port Angeles, you see courtyard apartments, Cherry Hill and some of those, more in-town neighborhoods. And many of those places would not be legal to build today because of the different requirements that we've put on them, like parking requirements and other things. And some of the building code comes from the state. One of the legislative advocacy aspects that we're probably going to be looking into in this next year is asking the state to slow down the rate that building code updates happen, because we as a small community just have a difficult time keeping up with that. So, I've kind of gotten off course from the Airbnb topic, I think. I ramble, but all these things are obviously connected. I do think that we as a community need to have a conversation about what we want to do about Airbnbs, how we want them to be, whether we want them to be licensed, whether we want them, other candidates have mentioned, maybe a lottery where we have X amount of Airbnbs and you have to get a permit to operate one. Some of those ideas I think are I don't know, more kind of wild than others. But I think that that's something that we as a community need to have that conversation about, knowing that, like I said, we do have housing issues at multiple income levels that we need to take seriously.
Okay, I've sent the link to him twice. Brian, I guess he's not joined yet.
I haven't seen him.
I think let's just keep asking Mike questions from the members. Well,
Okay, I got one. This is about the vaccine mandate that was recently enacted. What is your position on the county's requirement for proof of vaccination status for indoor dining? And then secondarily, how do you feel about restaurants that don't enforce that? And you'll probably be speaking as a restaurant owner too, as well as a city council member.
So first off, I definitely support our county public health officer in, the actions that she takes. My perspective, and I've said this publicly, is I am willing to do as a business owner almost anything that helps my kids stay in school. I think that is far more of a priority than businesses staying open right now. I don't want to do, I'm obviously very concerned about long-term damage to the small business community. And I think that's something that all of us, I think, are concerned with. I've seen numerous kind of organic, like support local, campaigns. One of my good friends, she's a nurse practitioner. She used to work at the hospital, and she posted on her social media about, hey, the hospital's overwhelmed and small businesses and restaurants are working through these mandates. And in like 2 weeks raised $3,000 from just random people donating from locals. This is happening in Port Angeles, and she's going to local restaurants, buying a whole bunch of food and delivering it to hospital employees, different shifts. So, I think our community is going to come together and do the right thing around all this and be, pro-social and support each other. And so in the short term, yes, we have to do some things to make sure the hospital is not overwhelmed. One thing that really came to me, a couple of years ago, our hospital came to our community and said, we have these large cuts that are looming on the horizon, and we need you to contact your representatives, sign letters, and do things. And we all came together and said, hey, our hospital needs to make sure that they have sustainable funding. And that effort, I think, wasn't 100% successful, but we did, do a lot. And now our hospital is literally overwhelmed. Our ICU beds are pretty much at capacity. We need to do the same thing. We need to come together and support our hospital.
Okay, great. Thank you. I believe John has joined us, and in order to play catch up, I would like to have him ask him to give his 3-minute opening statement, and then give his take on the question that you just answered, which I'll repeat for you, John, after you do your opening statement, and you need to unmute yourself.
There we go.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm late. Just getting ready for a funeral this morning. I moved to Port Angeles 4 years ago, and I come from a background of manufacturing engineering in the aerospace industry. I'm a handyman, a general contractor, doing repairs and maintenance on buildings and houses, commercial as well as residential. The number one thing that I see that has degraded in our area here is the homeless situation, and I believe it's our response to the drug epidemic. It's a tough nut to crack because we have to be honest about what the problem really is. And I don't believe that this current city council has really a very good grasp on the situation. We keep throwing money at the problem, and it's not getting any better. So that's my opening statement.
Okay, thank you for that. And the question that was being addressed when you joined the meeting was, let me just read it for you. How do you feel, wait a minute. What is your position on the county's requirement for proof of vaccination status for indoor dining? And how do you feel about restaurants that don't enforce the COVID ID mandate?
I believe that the government overreach that we're experiencing right now is contrary to the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. You can't have a dictator telling everybody all the way down the line exactly how they're going to act or what they're going to have in their. I am against the mandate, so are so many people, and we're making our distaste for this known in public. And I also think that there's a lot of people that are being discriminated against for being healthy. I myself have had COVID, therefore I have antibodies and/or T cells, and I'm still being discriminated against. But you can't tell that a person is safe or secure or okay to be around just by looking at them. So I understand that there's a lot of fear, and fear drives a lot of policies. And I'm here to try to shed light on the facts that people need to understand and people need to be taking a look at. Healthy is healthy.
Okay, there was one other question. How do you all feel about John answering Rebecca's question and then we move back and forth? Does that work for everybody? Okay, Rebecca, would you please repeat your question?
Sure. So we know that there are about 900 Airbnbs in the area, and that is, sorry, I'm trying to repeat kind of just to be fair to John, kind of exactly what I said, which is obviously affecting the housing stock for people. Are you willing to consider as city council either pushing to divert lodging tax or to do some sort of movement where residents, if you buy a house, have to reside in it for at least a year? Any other solutions?
Residing for a year is a very good idea because nobody wants to live in a rat hole. I'm a former landlord, and I'm very, very close to those issues of housing people. I've housed homeless people and drug affected individuals. I had clean and sober houses up until 2008. And I'm also very well versed in government overreach. I see a lot of that happening in terms of housing, and I really don't believe you're going to solve a housing problem by putting people out of business because they're trying to make a profit or trying to have a sustainable investment. So I'm not for more government control over a free market enterprise.
Okay. So I would like to ask any of our members if they would like to ask a question, just jump in, and then Mike will go first and then followed by John. Well, don't bang down the doors. Let's see here.
Yeah, I got a question. So first off, thanks for both of you joining our forum this morning. And it's always good to see a face behind the name. So I'd like to revisit the vaccination mandate, actually, because obviously you both defer on that quite a bit. John, you talked about government overreach, and Mike, you seem to be in favor. But in terms of government overreach, you know, the government has speed limits. You know, they have, when you're going through Port Angeles, there's a certain speed limit you need to go on. So Mike, when you talk, or John, when you talk about government overreach, should we take down all the speed limit signs? I mean, it's the speed limit is for the safety of our community, just like the current health regulations. It's for the broader safety of all of our citizens. So when does government overreach stop, and when where do you take this?
So you're posing that question to me or Mike?
Both of you.
Right, both, but Mike goes first because John went just did one.
Great question. So, I'm not I don't identify as a libertarian, but I think that, we're all probably familiar with the libertarian view of liberty of, my right to extend my fist ends at your nose, or your right to extend your fist ends at my nose. So yes, individual liberty matters. We're all Americans. That's, deeply ingrained into our DNA. But our choices affect other people. And when they do, we need to be responsible for those choices. So, with, the policy that the government acts during a pandemic, it's based on that simple fact that the choices that we all make affect other people. And, we've had hundreds of thousands of people die because of this pandemic. And I think that, we all thought we were kind of getting out of it a couple months ago, and then the Delta spike happened, and now we're back kind of in the thick of it. I'm very disappointed that we're in the thick of it. I don't want to be, I'm not a huge fan of wearing a mask. It's not fun. And certainly it was an adjustment as a business owner to, have to ask people at the door to show vaccine verification. But again, like, our choices affect other people. As a business owner, the county mandate is actually helping, I think, me have more consistent hours of operation by preventing my employees from being involved in outbreaks, because they're really at the front line, being in a restaurant full of people that don't have masks on. So I think that, I definitely don't think, I think that it's right to be concerned about government overreach. I think that, we all believe that, the people should be in charge of the government and not the other way around. But, during a deadly pandemic, I think that these are reasonable measures that our county officials have been taking to protect us.
Thank you. John, just for your, whoops, stop that. Just for your information, we're hoping to have the answers be 2 minutes. That's why I was holding up my little sign. So now if you would like to respond in your turn.
Yeah, what does emit mean? Was that time backwards?
No, this was, maybe it was upside down, but I'll show you this when you got 30 seconds left.
Upside down.
Wow, sorry, you got 3 seconds left. I don't know. Just,
The way the camera presents a mirror image, that's what's
yeah, I
going
know.
on.
That's why I was doing it. Okay, I'll hold it like this, and then when it's time, I'll go like that. And sorry about that. I haven't started your time yet, by the way, because so when you start, I'll hit my little timer thingy.
Okay. I like the analogy to the speed limit signs, but that is a good idea to have speed limits that everybody is affected by. That's assuming that everybody is fairly equal. I'm glad that Mike brought up the idea of the DNA, that something is in our DNA. But what's happening right now is this mRNA vaccination is not really a vaccination at all. It is changing our DNA. The people whose DNA is being changed are actually emitting. I'm glad you brought up the emit word there. They are emitting spike proteins, which is causing the further outbreaks of the variants. This has been shown by some very credible, long-standing scientific people in the community. And sadly, a lot of them are being censored because there's a narrative, an overarching narrative in this nation that is very damaging and very dictatorial. So you're changing DNA. It's very bad. I'm a big believer in human beings being created in the perfect image of God. Therefore, the immune system that we all have should not be tampered with. We're Frankensteining here. I want to be very clear about that.
So as a follow-up to that, let me understand correctly, you would have no objection to a mandate for public safety for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine?
Who's the question referring to?
Well, to you, as a follow-up to your, to your statement that we're changing DNA with the mRNA, and the Johnson & Johnson is a standard vaccine. So I ask your, as just a follow-up to your statement, you would have then no objection to a mandate for public safety as long as it was only for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
I believe that each person should have a conversation with their own doctor and decide between the two of them what would be the best way for them to go. I still go back to the liberty question because we don't live in a dictatorship. This is a constitutional republic. And the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, if you want to call it a vaccine, is causing blood clots. And I've even got friends here that have had their 12-year-old children vaccinated with that. And it has caused myocarditis. Very dangerous stuff we're dealing with here. And nobody's talking about preventive measures. There are some things that were brought about early on last year that were canceled or shut down, or people can't get them. Now we're talking about things like ivermectin and monoclonal antibodies, some things that are very effective therapies, and they're being shut down or ignored by the media. So the media is no kind of doctor for me. I'm sorry. The government and the media are not doctors. And restaurant owners are not police. I have a big problem with people shoving people like Mike French around, who is a restaurant owner, and he can't make decisions for his own people and his own restaurant, his own business. That's wrong. Thank you.
Mike, would you like to respond to that?
So we're going to learn a little bit of basic science. The way that DNA is expressed happens one direction. DNA creates mRNA, which creates other kinds of RNA, tRNA, and then that creates amino acids and proteins. The process does not happen in reverse. So that's just basic science that I think it's helpful for all of us to know. mRNA cannot create DNA or cannot infiltrate DNA. It's expressed by DNA and it goes the opposite direction. And that's why, these, anyway, we don't need to go deeper into that. On all the other things, my opponent brought up prevention while decrying vaccination. Vaccination is by far the best form of prevention. It is one of the most important medical developments in human history. Vaccination efforts have completely eliminated many transmissible diseases, all risk of them from happening in modern societies. So, the mRNA technology has been around for probably around a decade or longer, and this is just the first major vaccine where we've rushed into production. They've had, continuous trials and safety measures. So, anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so here's something for the club to think about. We're getting on towards 8, and what I had planned was for both candidates to give a closing statement. And I personally have another question. So what I'd like to know is, does the club want to continue past 8 a.m.? Assuming that both candidates are able to do that.
I have to go to work, but
I can, but it's up to you.
It's up to you guys.
Okay, well, I'll just say, let's keep going. Whoops, forgot, dang it.
Well, I'd suggest let them give their closing comments. So and then let them each give their closing comments. Then we'll continue on.
Oh, okay, great.
Questions.
Okay, and John gets to go first because Mike went first on the opening statement. And they're supposed to be like, I forget. John, I've never moderated before, so thank you for your patience. 2 minutes each for closing statements.
Okay, I really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to the forum here. And I know Rotary does a lot of great work in the community. And I believe that if I'm elected into office here, I'm going to be leaning back on organizations like the Lions, the Kiwanis, which I'm a member of, and the Rotary for service projects that will decrease our necessary need for having government programs that do things for our neighbors. I don't think that government is the answer for everything. Speed limit signs and seat belts, they're necessary to have, and those are good things that the government has done, but there's a whole raft of things that the government tries to do that it doesn't do very well. So I believe we have to have a governor on the government and a local person who cares about people and wants to do just ordinary things to help people. There are homeless people here that need help. I met one yesterday. I got her back where she needed to be up on 18th Street, and I'm supporting the movement toward a more sane response to the drug subculture here. We have parks full of needles here. We have a couple volunteers who go out and clean up these parks on a regular basis. And I just think it's time to really get a little deeper conversation going there, because the people that are getting all the freebies and living like that are affecting other people in the community. And it's a health hazard that we really do need to take a much closer look at. So I appreciate your vote. Thank you so much for inviting me to your forum.
Okay, Mike.
Thanks for having us. I really enjoy these debate forums. Yeah, I think that the city of Port Angeles, there's a lot of important issues that we have facing us. You know, John brought up a couple of them, and I think that, you know, it bears repeating that, you know, chronic homelessness does do a lot of damage to our community, and it does require a robust response from both the county and the city. Thankfully, we have really great organizations, you know, like Peninsula Behavioral Health. Thanks, Rebecca Miller, for, you know, you're doing your great work, that are taking this very seriously and are moving forward with real solutions like the housing development that they're proposing and looking to get, you know, funding from the state for. And the city is really happy to be a partner. Thankfully, because, you know, we have had, I think, some foresight that housing is a real important issue. The city has a housing fund that has enough, you know, enough of a balance in it that we can provide Peninsula Behavioral Health with some assistance. It's literally on our agenda for tomorrow night's or Tuesday night's meeting. So, you know, for the past 4 years, I've really tried to focus on those really basic issues that are really important to all of our citizens. Utility rates, making sure that we don't see large utility increases for our customers that, you know, are already facing an affordability crisis through housing. Making sure that we're being a good community partner, that we have partnerships like the rediscovery program, where our police officers can have social workers co-respond with them, where they can, when our police officers that are working far harder than, you know, an average police officer should in a small town, have situations they encounter on the street that, you know, really aren't going to be solved by incarceration, that they can call a social worker and perhaps find a much better solution for everyone. So, you know, I think that there's still quite a bit of work to do. Obviously, the pandemic has created a whole host of new issues that both our business community and our government need to work together to solve. Our Chamber of Commerce has done a great job in helping our downtown try to create a vision, and that's ongoing. So my time is up. Thanks for having us. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks to you both. This was very illuminating, very substantive in my opinion. Are both of you able to answer what I hope is one more question? Because I have one that I'm really curious about.
Sure.
Okay, cool. I would like both of you to comment on the current ongoing municipal code revision effort. And let's see, who went first last time? Oh, I think John went first last time. Is that correct? Okay, so Mike, why don't you leap in, and you got 2 minutes.
2 minutes is not very much time, but this is something that this is a big project that is going to be a multi-year project. It started, I think, over the past few years, saying with the city council saying, hey, we need to do everything we can to make sure that our development code especially, but our municipal code as a whole is clear and concise and is communicating to our citizens what they need to have to make a development in Port Angeles, to do business in Port Angeles, to do all those things. And over the 100+ years that code has been cobbled together, it has not, in its current state, it is not a clear and concise document that communicates what the expectations are to our citizens. I think it started, I think that this process, number one, the most important thing is that it's a public process. The number two, we need to make sure that it's not a rushed process. So this is a process that will ideally outlive the sitting council. This is going to go forward into next year and probably after that. We're kind of undergoing our first steps now with a contractor that is working on the development code. And really my goal in that is to make it, again, clear and concise and simple so that people can have reasonable expectations when it comes to submitting a building permit and taking that through the entire process. Because that's something that has been a consistent complaint from our citizens, our development community to us as city council people over the last 4 years. But yes, we've had really good public participation. I think that that's something that I'm the most happy with, is that we've really gone the extra mile, had multiple open houses. Both were very well attended. And then right now that process is, the one section of that process that we're working on right now is going into our planning commission over the next couple of weeks, where they'll have a public hearing, and then that will be coming to the council. And again, the most important part of that is that we have a really robust public process for that, so that we're not, rushing things through all in big batches. But I think this has been sorely needed for a long time, and it's something that I'm most proud of.
Okay, John?
Yes, okay. I also agree that the municipal code is sorely needed revision, review. As a builder and someone who goes and gets permits on a regular basis, I need to take a much closer look at how the process is done, and why does it cost $30,000 to get a water line hooked up on a piece of property? There's one of the biggest hurdles for a person who wants to move into the area and build a house. You wonder why there's so many homeless people? Well, there's another reason right there. You can't just move into a place and start building. But I know there are reasons why we don't just do that. You have to have codes. You have to have some kind of guidelines for safety. I've seen buildings in foreign countries when I go on mission trips and down to Haiti and in the Belize. I've seen some pretty atrocious building and very dangerous building projects there. So I'm all in favor of reviewing codes, and that is something that that our government can do very well.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions, or do we need to let our two hardworking candidates get on with their day? Okay.
Yeah, I think we're good, Laurel.
Okay. Thank you both. This was very interesting and I think very substantive. And I appreciate the fact that both of you are willing to put yourselves out there to run to run for election. It's hard, and I get that, and we all get that, and we thank you for your service. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Scott.
Thank you. So thank you, Laurel, for organizing that forum, and John and Mike, thanks for both joining us. It means a lot to us to hear your views, and we wish you the best of luck on the election. And last reminder, here at 9 o'clock, well, less than an hour, we're gonna all surround Chris and support him on receiving the gold trophy. So Pacific Office and Equipment, if we can get as many people down there as possible and try to wear your Rotary clothes, your shirts, that would be great. Thanks everybody. And Laurel, thanks for that putting out.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.